Hey gang, thanks for tuning in. I'm doing this very, very special report on these late allegations, these crazy allegations against Vince McMahon. But I wanted to give you a heads up before we get started. There are some pretty crazy things in this story that unfortunately we have to go into some detail on. So please use discretion. Let's get started. This is the fall of Vince McMahon. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to this very, very special report on the fall of Vince McMahon. This is part 10, Grant Meets the Talent. This covers the summer and winter of 2021. Fear not, we are nearing the end of this journey. It is nearly in sight. You're just going to have to trust me, but there is a little bit more that we're going to have to get through to get to the conclusion of this epic tale. If you remember part 9, which was titled The Assault on WWE Headquarters, covered a very specific event in June of 2021 in which Miss Grant, according to the lawsuit, was subjected to multiple assaults at WWE headquarters. One very specific assault is pretty explicitly listed as against her will, as she did have to be held down during it. And what we talked about primarily during that video was about how the mix, the lines between professional and personal had been blurred to the point where the expectation was that she would provide sexual favors to both McMahon and Laurinaitis on WWE grounds during the workday. And again, we see like pure unadulterated prostitution, basically, of her services, complete and total control. So again, as the financial control gets exerted and as the pot starts to get sweetened, we talked about this $200,000 job she had just been promoted into. We talked about these $15,000 in Bloomingdale's gift cards being given to her. There's a whole list I'm going to go through. Tune into episode 12, where I kind of sum everything up and sort of talk about some of the more explicit claims and requests in the lawsuit. I will list out explicitly what are the items that are given to her, and you can see that for services like this, it comes at a great cost, the cost that only a billionaire like Vince McMahon could probably provide. But you can see a clear escalation across the board. So where does it escalate from here? Well, let's talk about it. Part 10, Grant Meets the Talent, summer-winter 2021. In July of 2021, Vince begins to recruit an unnamed but very well-known WWE superstar for a sexual encounter with Grant. Now, let's just mention very briefly how this person is identified in the actual lawsuit. It's pretty clear, and I want to look up the explicit verbiage here. It's pretty clear that there is it's pretty clear who it is that we're talking about here. There's not a lot of mystery associated with it. It's how many WWE champions and UFC champions are there in the world? So I'm not gonna say who this person is, but unless you've been living under a rock for the last like 15 years, well, way more than that, but unless you've been living under a rock for the last 20 years, you definitely know who this person is. They do not use their name directly in the lawsuit, but it's pretty clear that the lawsuit kind of goes out of its way to say who it is without saying who it is. Vince wanted this person under contract, but it seemed like this person wanted to pursue other professional endeavors, so Vince kind of had to find a way to sweeten the pot, as it were. On July 12th of 2021, Vince advises Grant to create a personal sexualized piece of content for this superstar and reports back to her that he likes it. So again, it used to be make something for John, make something specifically for John. Now we're going outside of John, and we're saying this person is requesting this explicit thing. I want you to record it for him and then give it to me. And then he's getting it and he's saying, Wow, that's really good. I really love that. In July, this superstar is flown by Vince into town for a dinner and a sexual encounter with Grant at Vince's condo. However, the superstar is too intoxicated to perform sexually and was returned to the plane. So again, this goes into the sex trafficking claim that's made, right? The claim being that this is trafficking. If he paid for that superstar to come into town specifically to meet her for a sexual encounter, and it's paid for by him, that is trafficking. It's human movement associated with this, and that is, I think that's where the claims of trafficking come in. Vince made an attempt to salvage the night. Oh boy. Vince makes an attempt to quote-unquote salvage the night by role-playing with her as this particular superstar, doing an extremely physically brutal sexual encounter that included, and this is direct from the claim, penetration, fisting, pulled hair, pinning, shoving, and open palm slapping. And the claim in the lawsuit is that basically Grant is left in a curled fetal position with her arms up to protect her face. So you kind of picture something, like this. Beaten pretty heavily. I mean, penetration, fisting, pulled hair, pinning, shoving, and open palm slapping. Yeah, very disturbing. So again, this clearly, by the claims of the lawsuit, this is clearly for Vince's sexual satisfaction. This has nothing to do with her, and this really has very little to do with the superstar, except for the fact that, Grant can be used as a tool in which to schmooze the superstar, perhaps lure the superstar to stay with WWE, which must mean the superstar is of extraordinary value to the company, I would think, not to give a hint as to who it could possibly be. And then the fact that the word salvaging was used, I mean, again, it's clear that this is for Vince. And the control, the violence, all this stuff, it's clearly for Vince's benefit. August 26, 2021, SummerSlam time, right? It's the end of August. SummerSlam is hosted in Las Vegas, and this superstar and Vince reach an informal agreement to continue working together. So again, while there's no direct sexual encounter outlined between this superstar and Grant, there was the explicit content. So in a way, I guess you could say that Grant did at least contribute to WWE retaining the services, should I say, of this particular WWE superstar. In December of 2021, so fast forward a few months now, Superstar gets Grant's number and tests Vince's claim that, quote, she'll do anything by requesting a video of her urinating. The way the lawsuit frames it, the request was reluctantly granted. So again, we're now past any agreement between them. This is just pure handing the number off to the superstar, and this superstar basically saying, hey, let's get me a video of you urinating. The superstar requested an encounter with Grant that same month. However, COVID-19 restrictions and a freak snowstorm seemed to thwart those plans. I do also remember some language in the lawsuit regarding the urination video that was provided. Something like after she provided the video to them, they basically were like, wow, well, if you didn't do that, you wouldn't appeal to me at all, or something like that. So again, we see the continued expansion, if we're looking at the overall thing, from Vince alone to Vince and his close associates, his fan club, right, as they come to be known, to Vince and professional associates and the leadership structure, Laurinaitis, and now it's expanding even into sort of the talent right? The superstars. She's being pimped out as a way to retain talent in all of its craziness and entire ridiculousness. That is currently where we stand today. So, next time, tomorrow, episode 11, part 11, Mrs. McMahon and the NDA. How do things blow up? Everything comes to a crescendo. This covers basically winter 2022 all the way up almost to the present time, really. This is where everything explodes. This is where things blow up. Plans get ruined. Things get exposed. How does any of this come to light? And how do we get from Janelle Grant is being pimped out to retain superstars and cutting urination videos and being forced into prostitution? How do we get from that to this lawsuit now, a year and a half, a year and 3/4 later? How do we get to that point? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how Linda McMahon plays a role in this. We're going to talk about the NDA and the huge controversy surrounding the NDA, which is the primary driver of this lawsuit here. And we're going to talk about basically how what the terms. We're going to talk about some of the terms of the NDA, and we're going to talk about how Vince and WWE broke the terms of those NDA, which led Grant to file this claim. So please stick around. If you haven't watched episodes 1 through 9, please definitely do that now. It's important to get everything in context, and I really tried to cut this down into bite-sized little pieces to make things a little bit easier to understand and to deal with and to provide full context of what's going on, not just inside the lawsuit, but what's going on in the world around it, right? Who's coming into the company? Who's leaving the company? What effect is COVID having on the company? What types of, not necessarily storylines, but what types of events associated that are happening in front of the camera, right? Whether we're talking about SummerSlam, whether we're talking about WrestleMania, whether we're talking about talent moving in and out, her taking positions inside the company. I mean, it's all interconnected. People joining the company, people leaving the company, HR reps getting fired, just all the movement that's going on. It can look like complete chaos if you look at it from the outside, but I really tried to break it down in an organized way for everybody to understand. So, I'm not going to say I hope you enjoyed it, but I am going to say I hope you understood it. Please stick around for the next episode, part 11, Mrs. McMahon and the NDA, and keep watching so we can keep wrestling with the business.